Welcome to the 700 Club. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say my heart is literally broken when I see the tragedy unfolding in Afghanistan. And I hear the cry of people who want to get out and they're not allowed to do it. I hear the cry of people who are being trampled by mobs. I hear the cry of those who say, please, please help us. We can't get out of here and our lives are in danger. And instead of that, we hear, do not try to make it to the airport, though the president says the way is open. That's the current warning to Americans from the State Department in light of a new terror threat in Afghanistan. So how are the thousands of trapped Americans going to get out? And why is President Biden still so clueless about what has been a massive debacle with thousands of Americans and their helpers in danger of being executed by the Taliban? And what about the Vice President Kamala Harris? Well, in Singapore, I mean, she's in Vietnam right now. She says, we'll make a thorough study of the matter of what caused it. That's really what those people who are helpless now need, is a thorough study of how come it happened. Here's Dave Hurd.
An Afghan soldier was killed and 3 wounded in a firefight near the airport today. This amid credible threats that ISIS in Afghanistan is plotting attacks around the airport. The U.S. State Department is warning Americans not to try to get to the airport. U.S. military aircraft fire flares during takeoff, hoping to confuse possible heat-seeking missiles from the Taliban who surround the airport. Joe Biden insists he made the right decision and said the withdrawal would be messy no matter how it happened.
I think that history is going to record this was the logical, rational, and right decision to make.
But he's taking fire for not getting Americans out before withdrawing troops. U.S. citizen David Fox is stuck in Kabul with his wife and child, turned away after reaching the airport.
The airport is very dangerous. So the Taliban enforcers had these, big rubber bands. I think they're called like motor fan belts. I actually got whacked with, with one of these fan belts for not moving fast enough.
Desperate Afghans are taking desperate measures. This infant was handed to American troops over razor wire. The boy has been reunited with his father at the airport. This young girl was begging to be let in. Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris on her trip to South Asia laughing as a reporter shouts questions about the debacle in Afghanistan.
What's your response to reports of Americans?
Hold on. Slow down, everybody.
Republican leaders are calling out the administration for the catastrophe at the airport and a new and growing threat to the U.S.
And this is an embarrassment on the world stage that Joe Biden has provided us. This has set us back decades. The Taliban now has more Black Hawk helicopters than Australia.
Our mission in Afghanistan was to deny terrorists a sanctuary. And the Biden decision now to completely withdraw has handed them an entire country.
Joe Biden now says the August 31st deadline to withdraw U.S. troops and evacuate civilians could be extended, but there's word the Taliban will not agree to it. Pat?
Dale, I understand the president's numbers have been dropping. There was this poll that showed that a majority of American people don't think he's even going to be physically able to finish out his term. Could you tell us what the latest numbers are?
Sure. We have an NBC poll that says that an overwhelming number of Americans no longer approve of Biden's handling of Afghanistan. 60% disapprove, with only 25% saying they approve. And new evidence that the Afghanistan mess is affecting the president's overall ratings. A CBS poll on the question of whether the president is competent, focused, effective. A majority now saying he is not. And when confronted with these numbers by a reporter, the president reportedly laughed. But there are signs that the media, which, as you know, has given the administration a pass pretty much in the first months of the administration, the media is waking up now that there is a serious problem here.
Thanks, Dale. Ladies and gentlemen, they own it. You know, who ever heard of bringing in people like this? If the media hadn't covered up the problems with Hunter Biden, if they hadn't covered up the laptop, if they hadn't covered up all the things that were known along the way, it was just said it was, quote, Russian disinformation. But the media is complicit in this debacle that we're having in our country. And as I say, it breaks my heart to think the greatest nation on earth is led by somebody who is incompetent and who, along with him, has got a vice president who has nervous laughter and said, well, what about it now? I'm going to do a thorough study of what's going on. While these people are dying, it breaks your heart. But in other news, 17-foot waves slammed the New England coast this weekend with 75-mile-an-hour winds, while central New Jersey was drenched in 8 inches of rain and floodwaters. Also in Tennessee, historic flash flooding has killed at least 21 people, including 7-month-old twins who were swept out of their father's arms. So what now? Mark Martin reports on these epic twin storms and their aftermath.
Henri is now a tropical depression lingering over the Northeast. The storm bringing wind gusts up to 70 miles an hour as it came ashore on the coast of Rhode Island Sunday, causing 100,000 power outages as it moved inland. But its worst damage might be yet to come. The storm's rain bands are spread out over 9 states, putting 40 million people under a flash flood watch. This tree almost fell on 2 homes.
He told me that it fell down, and I said, no, sir. I thought he was lying. So when I came out here, I couldn't believe it, that it didn't hit anything.
Waves up to 19 feet slammed the New England coast. Farther south, residents of central New Jersey saw 8 inches of rain and floodwaters. Rescue workers carrying scores of people to safety. Meanwhile, in Tennessee, an historic flood disaster over the weekend. At least 21 people died after record-setting rainfall caused flash flooding. It happened about 75 miles southwest of Nashville in the cities of McEwen and Waverly.
Houses are washed away, knocked off foundations, just totally gone. Still people missing. Lots of cars are smashed up and gone.
Humphreys County saw 17 inches of rain in less than 24 hours. At least 20 people remained missing overnight. Rescuers believe the death toll will climb. Among the dead, 7-month-old twins. Their family says the floodwaters swept them out of their father's arms.
I would expect, given the number of fatalities we have seen so far, that we're going to see mostly recovery efforts at this point.
The flooding destroyed entire neighborhoods, lifting homes off their foundations. The waters also took out bridges and roads.
It was raining all night, but when I got up at 4:30, it was starting to really flood, and it just happened so fast. By 6:30, we were on the roof of our house and hoping that we were going to make it.
Scary scenes there. And Pat, as to Henri, the National Weather Service says this system is predicted to hover Monday near the Connecticut-New York state line before it then travels east across New England and then pushes out into the Atlantic Ocean. The agency says Henri could add 1 to 3 inches of rain today and could cause major flooding as it moves out. Pat.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, you look at these things, we are now the greatest nation on earth, but we don't have a leader. We really don't have a leader. I was reading today in the Bible where it says that David was made king and he guided them with the skillfulness of his hands. We don't have a skillful leader. We don't have one. We've got a president who is incapable of command. We have a vice president who is a joke. And then we have Nancy Pelosi. And if you look at the chain of command, if something happens to the president, and people are saying, well, he should resign. So he resigns. Who do you get? You get Kamala Harris. If something happens to her, who do you get after that? It's Nancy Pelosi. I mean, that's the chain of command. And you realize, what have we done as a nation? We have killed 60 million, at least, unborn babies, 60 million. We have promoted and made legal something that the Bible calls an abomination. We have actually enshrined it in our laws. We've done that. And we have exported this stuff all over the world. And on top of that, we have wasteful spending. Our debts are growing to monumental proportions. There's no way that we're ever going to pay it off the way we're going now. It won't happen. And what I'm saying is, ladies and gentlemen, whether you want to hear it or not, is this nation that should be blessed of God is under the curse of a righteous God. And we must repent and call upon the Lord. Now, 2 Chronicles 7:14 says this very clearly. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, I'll hear from heaven, forgive their sin, and heal their land. Now, that doesn't just apply to Christians, it applies to the whole nation. When Solomon was talking, the people who are called by his name are the whole nation of Israel. That's called by the name of the Lord, Israel. So America needs to turn to God. Will we ever do it? It's unlikely. The book of Revelation said it's not going to happen, and I doubt if we will. But maybe there will be a sense of repentance that somehow God in his mercy will spare this great land, because this is the greatest nation on the face of the earth, and this is the hope of freedom. So what happens if America goes down? We have this feckless leadership right now. It's horrible. And we have mounting debts and wild spending that's going to bankrupt us. We have all these things going on. And we cry out to God, will you please help us? So my message to you today is, let's put 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face, humble themselves and pray, then I'll hear from heaven and forgive their land, their sin, and heal their land. We need healing because this nation is in serious trouble. And we ought to all be on our face to pray. And I do believe in my heart that God is going to send a great spiritual revival. I don't know that we're going to get, somebody's going to blow us up with an atomic bomb. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that there's going to be a destruction of our whole nation. But I do think there's going to be a turning to God somewhere along the way where there'll be national revival. But that's what we all should be praying for. God, hear our prayer and heal our land. Well, also, right now in the news, the big question is what the impact of the 2020 census will have on the midterm elections, and which party will reap the biggest benefit. Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson has more on the frantic race to redistrict in states across the country.
7 congressional House seats are shifting in 2022, with 3 GOP strongholds gaining seats, while blue states like New York and California lose them.
We're seeing vast changes in the United States.
Texas will add 2 seats, while Florida, North Carolina, Colorado, Montana, and Oregon will each gain 1.
Particularly in states that have one-party control, you're going to see some efforts to try to redraw lines to try to benefit that party. That tends to favor Republicans more than Democrats, but it's going to happen everywhere.
ABC News' Rick Klein told CBN News' Faith Nation that how this plays politically will depend on the particular rules in each state.
There's going to be a series of massive battles, all on a very tight time frame in advance of the primaries next year.
While we expect a lot of talk of gerrymandering around the country, the legal battles can't go on forever.
The sooner that the states can draw their districts, finalize their maps, the sooner the legal process can begin to play out. And all of that needs to take place well in advance of 2022.
Zach Smith of the Heritage Foundation tells CBN News voter eligibility was not included in census results.
The districts will be allocated, as I understand it, based on actual population, not simply based on citizenship.
Another big factor for next year's midterms, Will voters support the massive spending plans pushed by Democrats?
Democrats are essentially betting on themselves and their ability to sell this. Otherwise, they are staring down the possibility, if not the likelihood, of losing the House and perhaps the Senate as well. So it's as high risk a moment as you can imagine politically for the Democrats to be pushing something of this magnitude on their own.
Klein adds that if Democrats are able to pass their spending plan, it will lead to additional taxes on Americans. And that's a tough thing to sell politically. Reporting from Virginia, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
You know, the thing, we've only got 15 more months, and I was wondering, what do you do if you've got Nancy Pelosi standing in the role, potentially the next president of the United States? If something happens real quickly to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, then she is in line to be the next president. And I asked our staff to check out the rules of the Senate to see if there could be a change before the election. Now, I believe without question the House is going to shift to Republican. The chances are the Senate will shift to the Republicans. And it's going to be a monumental change. But 15 months is a long time to wait. So the truth is, according to the rules of the House, if a particular party caucus comes together and declares that the office of Speaker of the House is vacant, they in turn can cause another election. And it might be there are enough Democrats who are sick of the spending problems and the other problems of this government that they would get rid of Nancy Pelosi and put somebody else in. It doesn't have to be a Republican. It could be another Democrat. But whoever it is could be a different speaker. But we're not sure about that, but that's what could be done if you want to get a little into the future. Well, CBN senior Washington correspondent Jennifer Wishart is here to tell us more about what could be coming in these midterm elections. Jennifer, are there any races we should be watching as indicators of 2022?
Absolutely, Pat. There's a few test cases. This year, only 2 states have statewide elections, New Jersey and Virginia. Now, in New Jersey, it looks like the Democratic incumbent governor there is going to be cruising into a second term. But Virginia is pretty interesting, Pat. Right now, the Democrat and the Republican running for the governor's mansion are in a statistical heat. And this is interesting because Virginia, a red state, turned purple and has really been blue the last few cycles, reliably blue. This is a pretty interesting development. Along with the governor's mansion, all 100 seats of the state house are up for grabs. I've spent time with Glenn Youngkin, who's the Republican running for governor. I've spent time with some of these House candidates, and here's what they're hearing from voters. They're concerned about crime. These efforts to defund the police and undermine police are backfiring. Pat, the murder rate in Richmond, the capital city of Virginia, is up nearly 40% over last year. That is a big deal. Also, voters concerned about what's happening in schools. We've reported on Loudoun County, these school boards who are pushing critical race theory. Parents have had enough of that. They've had enough of efforts to over-sexualize children. They're done with that. Also, in Virginia, there's been a push to do away with advanced diplomas, and parents are pretty upset about that after they watch their students work so hard. So these are the issues that these candidates are hearing from. And Pat, this is so important because the margins that we're talking about in Virginia, where this could go to the Republicans' way, we're talking about the suburbs. These are women who in 2016 voted for President Trump. In 2020, they voted for President Biden. Have they had enough with the Democrats' agenda? We'll see. But right now, Republicans feel like the wind is at their back. All eyes are on Virginia, Pat, to see what could happen in 2022 across the country.
Jennifer, if I'm correct, usually the polls reflect the Democrat majority by quite a bit, and when the final vote is counted, it comes out much closer. If it's a statistical time now, that would really favor the Republicans, wouldn't it?
You would think so. And they really, really feel the momentum. I mean, I think, and Virginia has been under one party rule, and Virginians and Americans generally, they like to have some balance. And so with a Democrat in the White House who's facing so many problems, they just really, Republicans really feel like they have a great chance to, as they see it, hold the line and have, keep Democrats from, just having one party rule in Virginia.
Well, we live here. That's our home base, and I noticed that our district here was so strong for Republican, and then the man who was the candidate had some issues and tried to pull a cute stunt, and it backfired on him, and he was beat by a former Navy commander who is a Democrat. But any of these seats are open right now. It looks like if we can wait 15 months, there's going to be a tsunami of change. We can see the seats in Georgia come back again to Republican. A whole lot of things could be happening where the Senate and House could change. But 15 months is a long time to wait, and a lot of things can happen in the meantime. While we're watching the debacle in Afghanistan, the suffering of so many people, the flood of immigrants across the border, the crime wave, the defunding the police, all the rest of it, people want to make a change, but they've got to wait. And unfortunately, a lot of things bad can happen, including wrecking our economy.